Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Entheon's channel. We have an exciting video for you today. We are, of course, here with Tim and special guest, Dr. Brian Jahns, who was recently announced as the new Chief Business Officer. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Very well. Very well, thank you.
So, Brian, for those not familiar with you, you've got a couple decades of experience in the biomedical industry. Can you tell us about some of your past work?
Sure. I think I like to summarize it in that I bring science to business and business to science. Originally trained as a pharmacist, I taught for a while. I got my doctorate in the States, taught at the University of Toronto, moved over into pharma, worked in medical affairs, doing trials, sales, marketing, rose to become the vice president of strategy and the vice president of oncology for Hoffmann La Roche, worked on some global teams, and then pivoted into a really interesting and cool space, which is small Canadian biotech. Worked in small Canadian biotech in oncology for a few years, dabbled in the cannabis space, working to turn cannabinoids into prescription products. And a while back was introduced to Tim and the team at Entheon. The time was absolutely right for me to entertain a role with Entheon. They were very kind in offering me the chief business officer role, just as this whole space is just taking off, and I'm extremely pleased to be starting with the organization.
Yeah, it seems like an exciting takeoff point for you. What really drew you to the biomedical field?
This isn't tongue-in-cheek. I've always been fascinated by the way chemicals and substances work in the human body, and so since high school, I knew I wanted to do something with. And this isn't tongue-in-cheek, I promise. I wanted to do something with drugs, and I had no idea where it was going to take me. I just knew that I sort of had a curiosity, a desire to bring new drugs to market and help make drug therapy for patients more effective and treat patients. And I've sort of been privileged to be part of a couple of different revolutions: a revolution of biologics in the treatment of cancer, the revolution of precision and personalized medicine, and now I feel like we're on the cusp of a revolution in mental health. The rough last several months, the last year in quarantine, have emphasized in my mind just the depth of need in mental health, and the promise that these compounds that we're researching, the promise that they bring for patients.
Yeah, I think it wasn't really considered what isolation would do to people for an entire year. It definitely, some people were already struggling. There's always people struggling, but it made them worse, and it made almost your average person is suffering from some sort of, I would say, mental stress from having to be isolated for so long now.
100%, 100%. It's almost like we've been part of this bizarre social experiment. And from my own family's perspective, I have a teenage daughter who's ready to go to school in Toronto, who has been very much feeling the brunt, feeling the effect of isolation and being discorporated from her friends and from her social support networks. And so, yeah, this is really hammered home the importance of effective therapies for patients who are struggling under these mental health problems.
Agreed. So, Tim, what would you say Brian's biggest strength is that he's bringing to the table is?
Well, he certainly is handsome.
No.
No, I think we've talked about this before. There's a very obvious need, like we just touched on it right now, that the need is obvious, right? People are dying in the thousands every year due to drug overdoses. And, I've personally been touched by this. I lost my brother to drug addiction. But, we understand that in order for us to really leverage the mechanisms, the regulatory mechanisms that exist, it is a specific route with a very, very specified form factor of information and procedural nuance that only a person like Brian could bring to the table. That is that true like fire tested capacity to understand all the intricacies and nuances of that process. I think Brian's resume speaks to a depth of experience that could certainly help us. Passion is one thing, but passion without process can just remain as that, just as a pipe dream. And so we understand that in order for us to really help people and bring a product to market with the hopes of transforming people's lives, that we need seasoned pharma professionals to help with that process.
Okay. You guys released 2 news releases this past 72 hours. Ethics approval for in vivo DMT study and update on halogen.
Yeah, absolutely. So halogen is certainly quite interesting. As we talked a number of weeks ago, it was something that we were alluding to, the availability of commercial products soon. As much as our interest is focused on development of this clinical pathway for DMT, we understand that there is some ambiguity or uncertainty into what makes certain medications appropriate for people that are intending on using psychedelic drugs. And so a measure that we've taken, or that Halogen has taken, is in the development of a very convenient commercial product that retail user could essentially just self-apply and then get a report back within a matter of days or weeks. We see that as being a really necessary first step in terms of establishing some basic safety requirements before a person makes the sort of the leap that is diving into the psychedelic space. And so the biomarkers that are presented within that genetic test will give some pretty basic indications about whether certain psychedelics and certain drug classes are safe to use, or at least give you a characterization about what the risk profile might be based on your genetics. And so, we see that as the beginnings of a much larger, much more in-depth genetics, layer of genetics importance in terms of personalized medicine. But we are very excited that we will have something commercially available before the end of Q1. And with regard to the DMT preclinical agreement that we have, we understand that DMT is widely characterized as being generally safe to use. It's endogenous to the human body. The body knows how to process and metabolize it quite well. But because we are doing this within a strict regulatory environment, we understand that there may be additional rigorous testing that needs to be done to prove out that basic safety and toxicology. And so to that end, we want to get ahead of it and ensure that we did have a strong preclinical characterization of DMT in certain rodent classes. And so I just want to get ahead of that. And so
the evolution of DMT as a therapeutic is going to depend entirely on the data, on the efficacy data, on the safety data. As Tim said, DMT has been characterized as a relatively safe compound. Now we need to demonstrate the effectiveness, the dose, the manner in which it's used. I think that Entheon is actually going the extra mile and is very foresighted in the fact that it's got a number of research streams. It isn't just researching the molecule on its own. It's actually investing heavily into data science. It's investing heavily into the med tech aspect of measuring electroencephalographs. It's investing in genetic assessment, and with the analysis of all of this data across various channels, we'll be able to come up with sort of a holistic approach for treating these patients. And I think that is personalized. It's customizable to patients. It can manifest in a whole bunch of different ways in terms of commercial products that can be brought to market. And I think it really sets patients up to receive the best kind of care, and it sets healthcare practitioners up to deliver the best kind of care.
Awesome. Tim, is there anything else you want to offer before we sign off today?
No, I just really glad to have the opportunity to give Brian the spotlight here.
Thank you.
He's been a wonderful addition to the team, and just from the first moment that we encountered him, we knew right away that it was a home run. So we're super happy to have you with us, Brian.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Brian, Tim, thank you guys for coming on, taking the time. Thank you everybody for watching, and don't be afraid to like, subscribe, leave a comment, enjoy the conversation. Have a wonderful day, guys.
Appreciate it. Take care.